Hey there internets, I'm Michael and this is Toucan Play That Game with a review of Wake Up Cthulhu! And yes, it does have the exclamation mark, that's why I shouted it. Of course you don't have to shout that whenever you say it, but hey, it's kind of fun to do that sometimes. So what is Wake Up Cthulhu? Well, it's a game from GDM Games, and let's take a look at the box to see what it's about. Well, we've got some giant tentacles grabbing people, some green flames licking around, and guys in robes with daggers, which I'm guessing are cultists, because in this game you are each taking on the role of a cultist trying to raise Cthulhu. But it's not that you're all working together to do it, no. The whole situation is that you're working to be the best cultist, the one who's done the most to raise Cthulhu, but without being his first snack. So why don't we take a look at the table and you can see how this all works, and then we'll come back for my final thoughts. Wake Up Cthulhu has two types of cards. You have these brown backed ones, which are your ingredients cards, and then you have these blue backed ones here, which you have 6 piles with the first card turned face over, that are your grimoire cards. Now you'll be using your ingredient cards in order to use the grimoire cards. Here in the middle we have Cthulhu, who will be making his way along this path laid out with candles until he either reaches the red candle here or meets one of your cubes, which represents your power that you've used to summon Cthulhu. Now the red ones here and the purple ones here relate to either a 3-player game, you'll use the purple ones, and a 4-player game, you'll use the purple and the red. So all this means is that for a 2-player game we start placing our cubes on the candles, starting with the yellow ones. If Cthulhu meets a cube, that would be the end of the game also. When the game ends, whether it's because Cthulhu's got here or met a cube, whoever has the most cubes out on the board has used the most power to summon Cthulhu and wins the game. Now if you have a draw on the number of cubes out on the board, then whoever is closest to Cthulhu will win. So the way a turn will work is you will look at the cards in your hand and you'll be able to use these cards in order to activate grimoire cards. So here you've got lots of different ones, and the grimoire cards will have varying costs. So the cost to activate the power on the card is given here, and the symbols here represent what the card actually does. Now there is a list in the instructions that will make this all a lot clearer. The other thing you can do with a card is to expend as many as it says at the top of the card of the same colour ingredient in order to place that many power. Now also, whenever it has this triangle of arrows here, that means you can then perform another action. Otherwise you can only ever do one action. Now, as well as the spells here having that layout, you then also have these items. And these, when you buy them, go into your hand, but they don't count against your brown card of ingredients hand limit. They're just there for when you choose to use them. And again, they have iconography on the bottom that tells you what they do. So let's say my turn, I play one of these purpley worm cards in order to activate this power here, Libra Edon, which means I get to draw 2 ingredient cards and then I can perform another action. So we then discard this, and it's important that we have a discard pile, because if we run out of these piles, if we run out of enough of the piles, we'll reshuffle these to form new piles. So I can now take another action, and I'm actually going to want to place some cubes. So let's see if I have 3 of the same colour. Oh, I haven't drawn my 2 cards. Oh, I've got 4 of the same colour now. So what I can do is I can play 4 of the same colour to the discard pile here. So that's 4 of purple worms. And I'm going to use this card here for its placing of power ability. So this allows me to place 3 candles and then take another action. So I'll do that. So I place 3 of my cubes on candles. then I take another action. Well, let's look at what I've got here. Well, I've got 3 of a kind, so I can do the same again, but this time with this card here. And that only allows me to place 2, but still that means in this turn I've placed 5 of my 15 cubes. There's then nothing else I can do. So my turn is over. Now I won't draw back up to my 7 cards until the start of my next turn. Now with my turn being over, we then reveal wherever there is not a card revealed from the grimoire. If we get one of these ones with this symbol here, it is a curse. We move Cthulhu along the path, so moving him closer and closer to ending the game. Then if it has a dagger here, that means we have to blind bid on who will get this. So starting with the player's current turn it is, which was mine, I would place a card face down. I've only got the 1 card, which is worth 2 as it says here. Now the cards are either worth 1, 2 or 5 for a wild. So I have to bid a card, so I have to use this card, which will then mean I have no cards available until my next turn if any more curses come out. My opponent will choose to blind bid a card, and they will blind bid that one, and then it would be back round to me, but I have no cards, and then it's back round to them to bid a card. And they'll put 1 more card in. We then reveal our cards, and whoever wins gets the benefit of the curse. So the red player here won. Now both players discard all cards that were bid. So the effect here, they get to place 2 power, so they'll place 2, and they can also swap 2. So they could swap cubes around in order to make them nearer the end as well if they wanted. This then goes in front of the player who won it to represent that they won that card, and then we continue turning over cards. And you can see we've had another curse come out, so we'd resolve this curse as well. And this one doesn't have the dagger, which means that we don't do a blind bid. Whoever's furthest along on this track for this curse will lose 2 of their cubes. So these 2 red cubes get taken off. And this one, because it didn't get won by anyone, goes to the discard, so it could come back up again when we reshuffle. Then it would move to the next player's turn, and so on until Cthulhu gets there, and then whoever has the most cubes wins, or if there's a tie, whoever is closest to Cthulhu wins. So that is Wake Up Cthulhu. So what do I think? Well, let's start with the artwork. The box is representative of some of the artwork with that kind of cutesy comic feel to it. Mainly on the spells and curses that come up in the grimoire deck. I really like some of these, especially this, I can't pronounce it, but the one where there's little baby Cthulhus eating you, just chomping on you, is great humour, and it keys into the kind of humour they want for this. They don't want it to be a very serious game, it wants to be a very light, family-friendly game. So what about the rest of the artwork? Well, some of the items and stuff are a bit bland, as are the ingredient cards here. Much more kind of stylised graphic design rather than good, interesting artwork. But there's nothing bad about this, it's just inoffensive, it does the job. These kind of just become colours with the ingredients rather than specific items or cards. So, artwork, I would say, for the most part, is good. It's either going to be unoffensive, just flies under your radar, you don't even notice or think about it, or you'll see it and think, wow, that's amazing, keys into the theme, I really enjoy it. Now, talking about keying into the theme, let's talk about components. And there is one component that starts off keying you into the theme of this game, and that is the rulebook, because rather than being called the rulebook, it's called the Cultist's Handbook. So immediately they're trying to get you thinking as if you're a cultist and get you into that whole theme and feel of the game, which is really nice. Now, the rest of the components, unfortunately, are not that good. The board doesn't quite fold up properly or sit flat properly, but it's reasonably good cardboard, so there is that going for it. It just could have done with a better fold mechanism in the middle. The cubes are really nice, bright, vibrant colours, but the actual manufacturing of them could be better. There's lots of rough little bits, chips coming off, etc. And the same goes for the little green meeple that represents Cthulhu. The cards are a bit on the thin side, but otherwise good, fine cards. So yeah, that's kind of, component-wise, is a bit on the lower side. It's probably just that we're spoilt by the modern large publishers that there are out there. This is a small publisher doing the game on a much lower budget, and therefore you do get kind of slightly less good components. But what about the most important thing, the gameplay? Well, for the most part, I didn't enjoy this game very much. I found it very light, very random. But what I will say is that primarily comes from the two-player game. But this is two can play that game, so that is kind of important. When you're playing the two-player game, it feels very back and forth, pulling at those last cubes, switching them around to who will be the one in the right position, wrong position, because it feels like it's quite easy for you to get all your cubes out, and people tend to manage that. But then it's just pulling back and forth in a two-player game until someone gets lucky on when Cthulhu actually finally appears, keying into when they were moving things. So that kind of really detracts from the game for me a large deal. However, I will say it plays a lot better with 3 and 4 players. With 3 and 4 players, there's less of that just tug and throw that feels like it just comes down to luck, because there's much more moving other people around, moving various people around to kind of balance things, that makes it a much better, much more interesting game. Also, I do really like that these grimoire cards, the spells, are dual purpose. I really like it. It gives you a lot of choice there. So yes, it's hugely lucky when you're going to get the ingredients you need for a spell, whichever type you're using, whichever spell you're using, whether you use the spell power at the bottom or use the top bit to just further your own goal on the track, is very luck based. But you then have this choice. Once you've got your cards, there is choices there that make the game feel interesting, at least on that 3 and 4 player level. And there's an element of, oh well, I'll take that spell, or I'll use that spell because I don't want my opponent to use it, that's quite good and interesting. And then you factor in the curses, which just add an extra level of depth and decision, because as well as you deciding what card you're going to buy, whether you're going to use the top power or the bottom power, you then also have, do I want to use my cards to avoid this nasty effect? Well, to gain the benefit of this curse which has come out. And the whole blind bidding makes it very interesting. It just adds a huge amount more to the game with regards to the decision making. And you're guaranteed a certain number of curses to come out, because they're what's pulling Cthulhu out. So it works really nicely that you've got that. You've got to anticipate that those are going to be coming. Is really nice and good. So on the whole, I would say this game does not work great as a two-player, but is a good, light, family weight card game with an amusing theme, good comedy on the artwork, etc. for 3 to 4 players. But there is one more thing. You see, it might only state 2 to 4 players on the box, but in this Cultist's Handbook here, there is a solitaire mode, whereby you turn the board over and it has a track and you're racing against Cthulhu appearing to make sure that you have got there and done the necessary work for him to appear before he does. And this is actually really good. I would say this is better than the two-player game. It has a good amount of depth and decision making when you're playing. The randomness of the cards coming out that dictate how quickly Cthulhu moves means, you know, you might think you've got a bit of time and then suddenly bang 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 he's racing along. It's quite difficult and engaging, and yeah, it's surprisingly a good solitaire game. So what I would say is, if you want a game that's good for 3 to 4 players or as a solitaire game, then look at getting this, but not so much as a 2-player game. Okay, so that is my thoughts on Wake Up Cthulhu from GDM Games. I do hope that you found this video useful and interesting. If you have, please do check out the rest of the videos on the channel, as well as subscribing to the channel and sharing it with your friends and family. And do also take a look at us on social media. You can find us on Facebook and on Twitter. And as always, thanks for watching and bye for now.